Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In today's interview, I bring to you Robert Oliver, an incredible CEO who has exited one of his brands for $30 million dollars and is now on pace to do over $1 million a month with his new brand. This guy is my friend. This guy is one of the people I work with, and he's just an incredible human being as a whole. His straightforward way of thinking is extremely inspiring, and I believe will make tons of positive ripple effects in the world. So without further ado, make sure you're listening, pay attention, because this one is probably one of my favorite interviews that we've done this year so far. So without further ado, here's the Robert Oliver interview. All right, so welcome. Today we have something very special. Robert Oliver. I'm really excited to have you on, bro. Like, honestly, this is going to be very, very valuable. I think it's going to be one of the good ones on the channel for sure. So I want to start right off the bat. I give introductions prior to the video, but I want to start off with just maybe your quick introduction of yourself, and then I want to just get right into the journey, bro, because I want to really connect the dots to where you're at today from where you began. I always find that to be super interesting. So if you wouldn't mind, would you mind giving yourself like a quick introduction?
Yeah. I suck at intros, I'll be honest. My Robert Oliver. I think I just love like internet money and life maxing. I think those two things go to hand in hand. Um, Specifically, like I built a company called the Genius brand, a very strong Amazon only brand from like 2013 to 2018. Sold that, kind of done some private equity stuff, started another portfolio of brands, and I'm just all about it. I love
Wow.
the freedom that the internet enables, and I guess kind of getting to live that message.
I love that life maxing. That's a banger phrase. So let me ask you this then: where did the journey begin, bro? Because now you're maxing out your life. Like you've reached a pretty high level if we're talking about just like internet business. Where did it begin with business?
Yeah, I graduated college in 2013. I graduated a semester early because I'd done Running Start. I was going
Mm.
to take that semester off and just like, I don't know, chill and figure out my life. And it didn't really work that way. Like I got kind of an itch to wander into some business world. So I started kind of following around my dad, my uncle, a couple different people. And long story short, my uncle was making a shit ton of money on like helping brands sell on Amazon. And he was in like the consumer electronics world. So like Rockford Fosgate, Sonos, those types of brands.
Mm.
And I'll be honest with you, like I've never really considered my uncle that sharp. We don't really get along anymore anyway. But this dude was making a killing. And so I was like, well, there's something, and he like wasn't working that hard. So I was like, there's something going on with this Amazon thing. And basically that prompted me to, explore a little bit more. I realized that like this, there's tens of millions of dollars in sales being done here, like around the clock, nonstop. I was like, I could probably sell anything on here. So I decided I wanted to do what he was doing, help other brands sell, but in an area that I actually cared about. And that was supplements. And so that's where, my whole journey started. I
And
like
that was back in 2016, 17?
that was like 2014.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, that was like 2014. So I started as like, I guess what you'd call that like an agency. I didn't really think of it like that at the time. I was just like, I can help these brands sell on Amazon. I can get a piece of them. I can learn the business, or a piece of the sales. I can make some income here. And I guess that was like where I first started to really appreciate the internet and Amazon being this vehicle where you could just do shit you're interested in. Because I loved supplements. I loved working out. I
Mm.
love training. Like it ties back into that whole life maxing shit, right? Like I
Right.
try to be in shape and be the best version of me. And so I was like, oh, I get to work in an industry I like and actually make some money doing it. So that was the start.
Wow. Okay, so 2014, you began by just basically doing this for other businesses. I'm guessing, I don't want to spoil it, but that eventually turned into you saying like, "Oh, I can do this myself. Like I'm helping these brands do it, and they're making a killing now. Let me do that myself." So how did you then go from that to starting your own supplement brand? Because that's what you did, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm in this space. Like it's funny because when I started, all you had to do was get products listed, and like all of a sudden, I kind of people were calling me like the expert, and I felt nothing fancy about it. But as it kind of went on, I was like, oh, okay. If you get reviews, if you put keywords here, like I didn't take any courses or have any mentors or any of that shit. Like I just sat on that platform and experimented with other brands' products and like,
Wow.
will this boost sales? Will this boost sales? And so I felt like I really was developing this like really sick formula for scale. Got brands that are, they're doing like a couple hundred grand a month everywhere else, and then they get on Amazon and like their first month they're doing like close to 100,000. I'm like, guys, you should focus on this platform. And still none of these brands were taking it that seriously. They're like, okay, yeah, it's cool. Like we'll pay your commission, we'll try some stuff, but none of them were taking that seriously. We're taking it that seriously. So I had like this light bulb come on. I'm like, yo, I'm pretty sure I could build a bigger business than all of these guys and actually build a brand I cared about. That was part of my problem at the time too. The closer I got with these companies, the more I realized they didn't really give a shit about their products or, brands. They're doing all this weird stuff with the labels, like really scammy supplement shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the combination of those two things prompted me to take my little bit of savings and start my first company and really, really not look back. Like it was right place, right time. I had this playbook perfected, found a manufacturer and just hit the ground running.
Wow. So you really were able to spot like the opportunity. That's like such a great takeaway. So then you started and that was Genius brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what was the timeline for that? What year did you begin that?
I think Genius was incorporated like end of 2015. End of
Wow.
2015. Yeah.
And then so then you grew it all the way until a big exit in 2020, was it?
2019.
Oh, 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
4-year journey to an 8-figure exit. That's actually crazy. But you were preparing for that through what you were doing before, building that blueprint.
The blueprint and the skills and just, seeing the right area and capitalizing on it. My perspective is that there's two ways to really build like e-commerce brands in today's world. There's you raise a bunch of money, you like go in the red, you have a good idea, but you're brand building and you're burning capital to do it. And are doing your series A and your series B and trying to get an idea out there that may or may not stick. And then there's what I like to do, which is you just find a fucking edge that is profitable and you hit the gas and you go. And there's been all of these edges over the years. Like there were a lot of brands that built on Instagram organic when it started, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was like people are like, oh, drop shipping's back. It's like drop shipping's not really back. It's just like TikTok has created this area where you can literally make money on a, new way to do it.
Right.
And so Amazon was that edge for me. It's still a great opportunity today. It's like changed a ton, but that's just kind of what I'm about, trying to find those profitable, scalable edges.
That's such a good point. You mentioned, for example, like with Instagram, when Instagram first came out, brands like Movement Watches, for example, they were like the pioneers of the influencer marketing wave.
Oh, crushed it. Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're looking for. So that's so great. What do you think right now, in your like opinion, and this will be interesting, is an edge that people could have? I mean, obviously it's kind of personal. That's what I'm getting to. It's like it has to be very specific to your skills and like your journey. But what's something right now that is kind of an edge for a lot of people?
And I don't even think I wouldn't consider it personal. It's just something like, can you make a lot of money with it or not? Right? Like there was legit an era with Amazon where you could like put $1 in the machine and make 5. And then eventually the more people that find out about that, the more it compresses, right? That's just like the law of markets and the law of averages with everything. So right now it's without a doubt short form content, just period. I mean, the brands that have figured that out are making money without the overhead. I mean,
Right.
like the Tabs chocolate interview I did, he's gone on a bunch of podcasts. Like that's a guy who was able to scale to 8 figures without outside capital because he found a system that works and he scaled it and he hit the gas and eventually that'll go away. Right. And then it'll be a new thing because
Right.
people see his interview and people see me say this and people rush in to figure it out. And as the more people figure it out, the less it actually works.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll have a bunch of people making courses on the shit, 2
Yeah.
years from now, it doesn't work anymore. And then the cycle will repeat with something new. Such is life.
Yeah, history repeats itself. So let me ask you this then, because I love your framework basically of just thinking of things in like the simplest terms. Like it makes money right now. That's why we should do it. What are some lessons that you learned from your exit, like of things that people are doing, for example, that are kind of like nonsensical or things that are kind of a waste of time? Like what are some things that people can do that are simple that like will make it so that you can exit big, for example?
To clarify that question just a little bit for me. When you say You mean like brand owners? You mean like young
Yeah.
entrepreneurs? Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. Let's say just a beginner, like just an entrepreneur that's just getting started. What are some things that they can focus on the most that are going to make the biggest difference as opposed to, just a bunch of stuff that feels like work, but it's not actually moving the needle?
Okay, that last statement was great. Feels like work, but not moving the needle. I think everyone, regardless of where they're at, should be thinking, how can they build like like actual equity? How can they build a business that operates to a point that it doesn't require them? Because I think a lot of people get trapped in this like one of the cool, or not cool, but one of the kind of the funny things on the internet is everyone likes to talk about how much they make each month. Like, oh, I'm up to 100,000 a month, or I make 50,000 a month, and like this internet shit has given people the opportunity to create businesses where they never have to work ever again. Like, I don't have to work ever again, like, because I built equity value and sold it. And so to do that, you got to be thinking through, how are you working yourself out of a job? Like, what people are you putting in place? What systems are you getting operational? Because once you answer those questions and you have a business that runs more or less without you, but still spitting off cash each month, well, A, you can, life max or live your life. But B, more importantly, your business becomes attractive to a institutional buyer, or some, it becomes a sellable business. And so I think in everything that all of us internet people do, we need to be thinking like that, more like the hedge fund managers and the private equity guys, because that's where like permanent wealth can be generated. The internet's really afforded us that opportunity, and I just feel like way too many sleep on it in exchange for what they're making each month, without ever playing that long game. Because I know so many people who have had windows where they had some offer or some shit like that, and it worked really well, and they were making hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, and then zoom out a couple years and like the wells run dry, right? And they weren't smart with that money, and they lived some crazy lifestyle. And so I guess that'd be my take, is like really focus from day one on how you can create enterprise value and have something that you could sell. And that doesn't just mean a brand. It could be, agency. It could be like really anything, right? But just kind of think about it through that lens.
That's so powerful. I love talking to you because this is like it's just not the answer that you regularly get. At least for me, like I talk to a lot of people. A lot of people are in drop shipping primarily as well, and like they'll be like, oh well, just run Facebook ads, like find a winning product. I don't know. I just like to hear this the kind of next level advice, almost more about, it's like start focusing on like allocating your capital to the right people, delegating properly. These things are super powerful. So now, after you sold your business, you basically hit the ground running again, like super fast, gas pedal style. And now you're back to doing like crazy fucking numbers. So, let me ask you this. How are you able to replicate that? Is it through the same blueprint basically that you had when you began the other brand, or what has
It,
changed?
it's an evolving blueprint. It's always an evolving blueprint. Like, I have so much baseline skill from Amazon, but the playbook that worked on Amazon in year two isn't the same playbook that worked on Amazon in year one, right? And so now we're 8 years down the road, and it's like, okay, now how are we mixing in short form content? How are we mixing in this? Now Amazon likes that. And so I think one thing that like the greatest returns in life are from compounding. And so that's another, I guess, piece of advice for young people. I see too many people bounce around from thing to thing. Like, I am in this area because the math says year after year I should be able to generate more and more with compounding knowledge and applying new strategies. And so as I think about where the playbook's at today compared to 8 years ago, it's never felt like a dramatic shift year over year, because I got my finger on the pulse and I'm operating in this space, and I'm trying to, find what's new and work with guys like you, work with guys like Jimmy, just who is stacking onto that playbook. And that really is the way to be able to, not do it once, but do it again and time again and time again, and continually applying that knowledge and getting better. And so I think that's where the success today has come from. But look, at the same time too, like, I think I've got an awesome business, and I do hope this will be one that, can run to that 9-figure or bigger rate. But there's a lot of guys crushing it, and there's always a lot to learn from, right? So I don't think my business right now is currently very big. I mean, I don't know. It's like
That's
it's like
funny.
there's just
There's just
Yeah,
levels,
it's.
man. It's crazy.
I talked to a guy yesterday who started on the Amazon space. I mean, it's all public, but they're seeking 50 million EBITDA, so 50 million profit a year. E-commerce native Amazon brand, Mary Ruth, and they're seeking $1 billion exit, and that just shows like what's possible from this internet shit. I mean, he
Right.
started at the same time as me and another friend, Physician's Choice, similar deal, right? And so
Wow.
it shows the staying power. I think all of us get lost in the moment in the sense of we're here today and we got to get it, but the internet's only getting bigger.
Right.
E-commerce is only getting bigger. Like none of this shit's changing. So if you're able to create a healthy, sustainable, long-term business, game over. Sky's the limit. That shit'll compound. You'll get wealthier and wealthier.
Right. Yeah, that's something people don't think about enough when they're getting into business. You're totally right. So would you consider almost like even starting a drop shipping business as opposed to just building a brand? Do you think it's a waste of time? Do you think people are wasting their time by doing that?
I do. I do. Just because there's no sustainability in it. Like if you're trying to get some marketing skills, like if you're trying to learn TikTok organic or something like that, and you're 17 years old, sure. But I guess my take is like, why not focus on like why wouldn't you apply that same energy to something that'll go long term?
Hmm.
Like that was one of the things I get a lot of credit for early in the Amazon space. A lot of people were just throwing junk up there and they'd make money. But I was
Hmm.
like, no, there's like this, Coca-Cola is the most valuable brand in the world. Apple is one of the most valuable. Like, how can you create a brand? And so I would just encourage people, even at a young age, to be thinking about it like that. I'm really not big on the whole drop shipping thing personally.
No, I think that's actually really great advice because people get into this cycle, like you said, of just like, throwing up junk. And I think I agree with the fact that it's good to test. Like, it's like whatever if you want to learn some skills, but still that energy could just be used right away to sell something you actually really believe in. So that's
Definitely.
that's a really powerful concept. I actually saw that you talk about that, so I want to ask you: do you think, in your opinion, it actually serves you like a benefit to be following something you're passionate about as opposed to something that just might make money?
For sure. And don't get me wrong, like, make money first, right? If you see like the $1 billion opportunity and you don't care about it at all, but you know for sure you're gonna be able to see that through to the moon, like cool, go for it. So I would never say don't do that. But at the same time, it just comes back to this, like I can sell anything on Amazon. Like my skill set is SEO and ads and all this shit, right? So
Hmm.
why wouldn't I go into an area where I can speak the language a little bit better that I'm actually interested in and days I don't like it or days like things are frustrating. I like it enough to keep going. So I really think that's the beauty of the internet. It's not like Amazon specifically, right? It's like all of our means of commerce are, Instagram and TikTok. It's all areas where we get to choose where we want to play. And
Hmm.
so with that in mind, I would definitely say lean into an area that you are excited about and don't mind doing for the longer term.
That's great. So let me ask you this. Is that how you were able to come up with these ideas then? Is like you're testing. So for example, for
Oh, for
Top
sure.
Shelf, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm the user, right? Like you're basically the user.
absolutely. Like I don't do any like the market split test or this. Like I am my market. And
Yeah.
with Genius, I was too. It's like, okay, we're going the entrepreneurial, ultra optimized lifestyle. What does that look like? Like, how do you unlock genius in the average person?
Hmm.
And so, like, that's how that entire brand was built. And now we've rounded into this new era where, you've got the Tate stuff and masculinity and it's like, okay, that's obviously huge. It's obviously interesting. Testosterone's like a thing I've always been interested in. And
Hmm.
so let's build a brand around that. And like I get to further like broaden my own horizons in studying and researching and the product ideas just kind of flow naturally. A lot of people say that it's like, how do I find my first product? It's like, A, stop consuming and start observing, right? Because the shit you're being fed on your feed all day is profitable opportunities. You're hearing people's problems. And your job as an entrepreneur is to serve those problems. And so that's really where the framework for coming out with your first product should start from.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you basically touched on it a couple of times there. You kind of are helping these people in something that you know about transform themselves into, whatever that desired outcome is. That's really, really powerful for people to start thinking about when creating their business. So now you're saying, you're building Top Shelf and you hope that it will reach nine figures. I think for sure it can, as with the numbers you're throwing up right now, especially with zero ads. How do you think what are some things you think are going to be necessary to get to that point? Do you think it's just the same of what you've done up till this point, just compounded even further?
Well, I think when you start to get, when you're trying to go from like 8 to 9 figures, there's a lot of 8 figure businesses out there, which is fantastic. Nothing wrong with that. That fly kind of under the radar. Like they just have a good, solid sound business, strong unit economics, loyal fan base they found through, one means or another. To get to 9 figures, I think you got to start denting yourself in the culture. Like you need to get ingrained in the culture in some capacity, and you need to pick where that is. So it's like, um, is Andrew Tate going to show up on War Room with Alpha Grind? And if he does, how is that going to reverberate around social media? And usually you can't even get to that conversation until you are an 8 figure brand. But that type of social echoing is where I think you go to 9 figures.
Damn.
And then obviously you got to do all the blocking and tackling of the business at that point too. Are you picking a strategic retail partner? Like, what does all that look like? What does the internal infrastructure look like? What's your talent look like? It's a different game that I haven't done yet, but I've studied enough where I feel like, okay, I have an appreciation of how this works and the different levers you have to tag on. Obviously the product mix still needs to be super strong, but you just become part of the culture.
Right. Wow. I never thought of it like that, but that's so true. It's funny. You probably sold a lot of your product because like you said that you've never actually gone to school about this, or you graduated college, but like you've learned yourself. Like you haven't gotten mentors or anything. It seems like just crazy how much you know. So it's like your product is just great for selling the Genius product, for example. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense that people bought that, knowing you.
Well, I do have mentors, now. Like when I started, I didn't really. And I think
Mm-hmm.
mentors are important, but I think what's more important is like being a practitioner. I mean, just developing the skills because you're going to meet more high quality people. Like the people that network for the sake of networking are just stay away from those types. In my opinion, like they're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to bring anything to the table. They're trying to show you how nice they are so they can extract something from you. But when
Mm-hmm.
you like become the Amazon guy or you become the Facebook ads guy and this door opens and that door opens, it's a more genuine connection that lends itself to like strong, real long-term relationships. And so like I don't think I could get to 9 figures or a billion without, mentors and people that have kind of walked that road, so to speak. So yeah.
That's so powerful. So then let me ask you this. If you had to start from zero, this is a question I like to ask because my audience tends to hover around people who are kind of starting from zero, even though there's a bit of everything. But if you had to start from zero right now with what you know, what would you do to create your business, or what business would you even create?
I mean, I'd be playing the same game. Do I have the same knowledge base?
Yeah, yeah, same knowledge.
Oh yeah, so we'll be super specific. So if I have $0, because I get asked this sometimes too, if
Mm-hmm.
I had $0, I would, identify my product and my market, and I'd use some sort of AI to kind of develop the brand and get the structure together. I would pour into short form content because you need nothing but an iPhone to create that. I would do a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, which are both crowdfunding sources where you can put your product up. Is your audience familiar with those?
Yeah, so I'm
More
sure they are. I mean, it's pretty popular, I would say, or not popular, but well known.
well known, yeah. So basically, it's a platform where you can put your idea up and have people pre-order your stuff and raise money for your first run. And so that's what I'd do. I'd use short form content to drive the traffic there. Hopefully, we'd hit a big enough home run where I could fund my first order and make a little bit less more for the next order. I
Mm-hmm.
would obviously fulfill the Kickstarter campaign. I'd use the additional funds to start on Amazon. Knowing me, I'd probably try to negotiate with the manufacturer for some terms to get a little more inventory. And we'd launch on Amazon with the same short form playbook. We start applying PPC, doubling down, reinvesting. I would live at home on a couch, so I don't need to take any money out of the business. That's what I did with Genius. I didn't live fancy at all. I poured everything back into the business, and that's what I would do again until I got to a point where I felt comfortable. And yeah.
Wow. So then what do you think are some, because you would start with Amazon, obviously that's your bread and butter, it works, you're doing it now, you did it then. What are some pros and cons of Amazon?
The biggest pro with Amazon is that 1 plus 1 does not equal 2. 1 plus 1 equals like 5.
Mm-hmm.
So if you drive a sale on there through a number of different ways and everything goes well, Amazon will start showing your product to other customers within their ecosystem. They have 100+ million prime shoppers. That's a lot of potential eyeballs to see your product without additional ad spend. And so that is by far the biggest plus of Amazon, the stickiness. The average subscription on Amazon is 2 years, the average. So you get a customer on subscribe and save on Amazon, chances are they're going to have your product for at least 2 years. It gives you a really strong baseline and stable to build your brand on. I think the biggest negative is, you don't fully control your customer, right? You don't get all that data. You don't, you don't get all the same insights. Now, that being said, I think that's like overstated sometimes. Like you can, retarget your customers. They're adding all sorts of new stuff where you can email them. You don't get the email, but they are trying to build out a dashboard of tools to exist within the Amazon ecosystem. So I would say those are the main pluses and minuses. And it's just one of those channels now, like it's synonymous with e-commerce, right? You need a website and you need Amazon because that's where the traffic's going to go, period.
I think you mentioned something super crucial there that I actually had no idea about, the 2-year average subscription on Amazon. I think that ties in with what you were saying earlier about enterprise value. I mean, who wouldn't want to buy a business where they know their customer is going to be shopping with them for the next 2 years? Like, that's insane.
No, exactly. Exactly. And it makes just, one of the things I realized working with Jimmy, my partner on the TikTok side, is just next level with everything he does, him. But on the Shopify side, eventually, like, people run out of customers sometimes. It doesn't, there's like a well that eventually runs dry. Whereas with Amazon, it's the stickiness and longevity that, I've got products with Genius that I launched in 2016 that have never declined, like month over month. They've just, and not all of them go like this, but it's like, okay, that product has done 5,000 units a month every month for 5 years. Right?
Wow.
It's like, yeah, we updated the label or we did this or that, but it's more just the consistency. And that's like, if you're sitting at the top of search ranking, like if you're at the top of mushroom supplement and that 100,000 people search mushroom supplement every month, and you're going to get 5% of that, you have another X amount of subscription, like you see how the consistency can kind of can pencil out. So the biggest fear is like, do people stop shopping on Amazon? Probably not. I mean, if you're in like a super trendy area, like one of my failures was a keto cookie brand, and it was going really well for a while, and then people just stopped eating keto, and so that
Right.
that unfortunately, like, all my search area became useless. But if you're in more of like a permanent area, like I have a friend in pet supplements, you can't search any pet supplement without seeing him at the top. I have Genius caffeine, caffeine pills. Those are areas that seem to be pretty timeless, and as long as people are searching them, you'll be getting meaningful sales on Amazon.
Wow. That you mentioned something really interesting that I wanted to it was one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is, you're obviously super successful, but what are some failures that you've experienced? How many brands have you launched? Because I mean, I hear about Genius and obviously Top Shelf is crushing it, but what are some things that didn't work out?
I got really lucky in the beginning, and then I got lucky to fail a little bit later, because I think you need some failure to learn. But I launched 3 brands around the time of Genius. All of them did pretty well. Genius was the 8-figure one. I had 2 other 7-figure brands, and then I exited those. Before starting Top Shelf, I started 2 other food companies, and I acquired another one. And when COVID hit, everyone was buying food on Amazon. It's great. Lots of people buying snacks on Amazon. So we made a go of it, and we doubled down. We poured more money into it. Now, food margins are horrible, like absolutely horrible. Really, really tough to make it work. But you're seeing these sales increase, and you're thinking people are always going to shop online. So you keep doubling down. You put in, more money. You raise a little money. And long story short, there was no light at the end of that rainbow. So I don't know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 later, those brands ended up being written off, and they were good brands. Like one was called Smart Cookies, like nailed the branding, had the audience right. It was up to like 150,000 a month, but it just was never profitable. And and then all the inflation stuff hit, so margins went up, or margins went down, and then demand started to shrink with less people buying online. And that was just a lesson in unit economics and not getting blinded by your own success, so to speak.
Right. So you kind of didn't get emotionally attached to that, because I think some people in that situation maybe would let the ego of like their success get to their head and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna make this work." You were
Well, I
just
did
like,
for a
"Nah."
while. I
Oh,
did for a
okay.
while, for sure. And that's what, it could have been a $100,000 mistake, and instead it probably ended up being 3 or 4 times that. But again, it improves your critical thinking skills if you're willing to kind of like stop and now I got to ask myself all those questions with every product we come out. Is this right? Is this right? And I do think it puts in another layer for eventual success, but it's definitely not a fun lesson to learn at the time.
Do you think when you started those three brands, then, even though they were all successful, like, did you start those three because you had an interest in them, because you knew they were great opportunities and you didn't just want to choose one, or was it to reduce risk from just one brand?
I think a little bit of both. Like I was just really, really into all of it, and
Mm-hmm.
serving different customers with different brand identities. I had a partner in one of them who had their whole vision and idea, and so at the time I was just thinking like, I mean, both. It reduces
Mm-hmm.
risk a little bit, but it's also just a lot of fun creating and bringing new stuff to market.
I love that, because that's how I feel a lot of times. I'm just like, man, I'm just having so much fun. I should just focus all in on one thing, but I have so much fun, like just working with people and like learning more, and it's just a great time. So, what are some? Actually, you already touched on this. Short form content is probably the number one skill to learn. What do you think would be next? Do you think brand design, for example, or like just brand identity is worthwhile to learn, or should you just pay for that?
Um, I think people should have interest in it for sure. Like, because it's such an easy thing to answer. Usually, you look within like a niche or a realm, and it's like 20 brands that all kind of dominate it, and they all kind of have a similar aesthetic or vibe. So you ask yourself, like, why does this resonate to me, with me, and kind of work backwards from there. I don't think it's like a needle moving skill per se. I just think you kind of need
Mm,
to know, how that works and what it should look like. Um, I mean, really, though, at the end of the day, like, there's so many skills worth knowing or at least being aware of, right? Because the whole ecom thing is like to me, it's like an orchestra, and you have traffic, and there's a traffic and conversion component. And when you can sync it all up, because it's like, okay, the short form content works and we're driving it to Amazon, but X amount of people spill over to our website. And then, where's the Facebook ads guy targeting those? And
mm-hmm.
people are going to Google and searching for your brand. Are you at the top of the search results? Are you collecting emails? What's your email strategy look like? Are you doing SMS? Are you doing influencers? Like there's so many things. So if you're young, master in one of the things, like really, really pour into it. And it's so obvious that it's, short form right now,
Mm-hmm.
but you could also like just learn every in and out of Facebook. I mean, like Facebook
Right.
is still I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. That's still like that was one of the most ridiculous opportunities, and it still is, like landing pages and just different ways to talk to the consumers. And yeah, that was just kind of a ramble, but I guess my
No, that's
point is there's
good.
a lot of ways to make money with this shit.
Yeah, there really is a lot of ways to make money with this shit, for sure. And it's so worthwhile to focus in on those things, because I mean, every nine-figure brand, like you're saying, does all of those things like at a high level, but it's unrealistic for somebody just starting to like I get that a lot. Like somebody asked me like, "Hey, Aria, like I'm about to test a product. Like, which agency should I go with?" Like, I'm like, "What are you talking about? Just like launch your product."
Check this out. I had a student just send me his strategy, and he's like, he's like check boxes. Like, so brand design, mission statement, color palette, font, logo, trademark, packaging, story, create an LLC, then social media, standardized social media presence, standardized colors, IG, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok, website with blog, create evergreen content for ranking on Google, community, like create Discord, create Facebook group, create IG chat, create email, sales incentives for early ones, funnels that push 20% off. And like that it keeps going. Promotions,
Holy
IG, Facebook,
shit.
yeah, it keeps going. And I just responded. I was like, my dude, looks awesome. Like you have everything, except you're not gonna be able to do any of that. Focus on a couple key initiatives. Figure out Amazon SEO. Figure out short form content. That will get you to the green. Being in the green is where you need to start, because you're not going to do all that other shit. Zero chance you master it. Every single thing on there requires a level of mastery. That's why you don't see. I'm not sitting here trying to do Facebook ads anymore,
Right, right.
right? Like I call the expert. You
Mm-hmm.
need to like, and that's just you need the money to work with the expert, right? And so, yeah.
That's a
Anyways,
crazy example, and like that is exactly what I was trying to convey, and like that's what I said to the guys, like, bro, just launch your product, like just launch it yourself right now. You don't need any of that shit. Like just focus on the product, the ad. That's all you really need to focus on right now. And yeah, short form content, same thing. Amazon, same thing. So, what do you think about this? Is now kind of part of your journey. I'm curious about this that you're doing now. Is like you're starting to take this sort of like aggregator approach I'm seeing, because you're starting to acquire things, and you mentioned that you had already done that in the past. What's motivating you to start acquiring businesses? Is it just building that
Or just
enterprise
investment.
value?
I think my understanding of wealth and like, like real serious money has changed over the last 3-4 years, being in Puerto Rico, being around billionaires. Like you just,
Mm.
I mean, like the serious money is made from equity. It's not made from like working your ass off or this and that. It's made from equity. You get a
Hmm.
piece of a business that's gonna sell for tens of millions of dollars. Like that's why you see Alex Ramosi do what he's doing. Like
Right.
he's basically an info guru who's pushing equity instead. He's taking equity.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's like, okay, I have this platform, I have this skill set, I can unlock additional value for people. And so it was like a practical, thing to do. I can't do it all anymore. Like I can't be the entrepreneur steering the ship. So let me bring my skill set to the right brands and bet on the right horses, so to speak, and see where that goes. It makes sense.
Yeah, like even just from a math perspective, like you're kind of you're betting on these horses basically, and the more you have, like the better chances you have of hitting something big. I actually saw somebody say something really similar to that, and they were like, "Yeah, actually, funny enough, like I made like my nine figures, for example, on something that I didn't think was gonna be my nine-figure thing. Like it was just something that kind of came up as he was working on his main thing." And I just thought that was so interesting because that's not what you really hear about a lot. I don't know.
It's true though. No, I mean it's true. It's like just being in the game half the time and having the. I mean, so many people got way richer than they ever would have thought during COVID because of random circumstances and businesses like, you know, going
Hmm.
ape shit.
Right. So now that you built all this wealth, like, are you just continuing to double down on ecom, Amazon? You're just buying up equity in that, or like not even buying up, but whatever. Are you investing your money in anything else, or is that it?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm pretty diversified on like a personal standpoint. My time goes into ecom and Amazon and top shelf. Like I think that's where my time will, yield the greatest returns.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously personal brand and like the relationships that opens. Like personally, I try to follow a lot of the general diversification rules. I've got some like quirky bets. I probably have a little too much Bitcoin, but like whatever, like it's all good.
That's awesome. That's really. I have some Bitcoin too, and I feel that way sometimes too. But that's a really smart move. Um,
It's all good.
it reminds
Time will
me of
tell,
Luke
right?
too.
So
I remember Luke Belmar told me kind of the same thing, and what I learned in his interview is kind of the same thing. He's playing the game of like just capital allocation, and his time is mostly spent like meeting up with people and like just kind of being with billionaires, being around the right people. I think that's definitely the next level in the game. It's just starting to figure out where to put your money to work while you spend your time on like the thing that you have the most leverage on.
yeah, definitely.
So what? Let me ask you this now. When it comes to life maxing, what are some things you think are like the simplest thing that someone could do to start getting the some of the benefits? Because I actually read on your profile something that you wrote about meditation, and that was actually a really great example of just like this guy that kind of sold you. Can you actually explain the story yourself?
Oh yeah, the whole trend is in all meditation shit.
Well, yeah, and like how you basically learned that the meditation that you were doing, just the 20 minutes a day, was like getting you the same benefit as like this like $10,000 thing that people kind of like put themselves through.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Let me zoom out on all of that. Life maxing. It's a fascinating. Where to start?
How did you start getting into life maxing? Was that kind of just like your innate thing to just be better and better?
Yeah, it seems like. I mean, I think it starts with one. You have to be able to control your time, right? And then you want to be able to like live wherever you want to live, and then you want to craft your lifestyle however you want to craft it. And I think if you put a focus at the center of that is like being real human, like being real human. Like what does it mean to be human? It means like wake up at the right time and be able to go walk on the beach and go get some sun and eat good and spend time with your family and you know like go on dates with your wife or like whatever, right? It's like how do you max out all the components of being human without getting into some weird like Brian Johnson, I'm gonna live forever and have a blood boy shit. Um So I guess that's just my like life philosophy. Like it lends itself towards happiness. And I think there's a building component with
Mm,
all of that. Like humans are supposed to be building and creating and enjoying that process. And it's just, I guess it's just a life philosophy that's kind of developed for me over the years as through pain, right? Like it's
mm,
really easy to make yourself unhappy when business isn't going well or this or that. And so it's really kind of just formed through, I don't know, loss and experience
right.
and all this other shit where I feel like, okay, this is kind of how you should operate and you should continue to do so. And it's worked well for me.
Do you think people lack, you know, I mean, why don't people, why is everybody so sad in your opinion? Because everybody's kind of struggling, it
No,
feels like.
people spend their days like fucking running and hiding from things. I mean, like how
Yeah.
many people right now at 3:50 on a Sunday are drinking beer watching football? And that's like all they were excited about all week. That's like
Hmm.
all they were excited about all week. And life is like full of that. They can't wait to get off work and sit down and watch a movie just so they can numb their fucking mind. That's where the whole NPC thing comes from. So basically,
Hmm.
life maxing is like opposite NPC. Like, whatever can you do to wake yourself up in some capacity? It's like super uncomfortable in the beginning. It's like most uncomfortable in the beginning because everyone is like trapped in these routines and these flows that just I hate even like saying Matrix and all that, but like that's what it feels like,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
Like
good
I mean
analogy.
right now is the best example. 3:50 on a Sunday, most of America is drinking fucking Miller's Light right now and yelling at the TV about their favorite sports ball. Like that's anti life maxing.
That's such a good example. That kind of hit me. I'm like, damn, you're right. I guess, we're doing something right. We're talking about business, we're talking about wealth and growing. And most people,
There's
I
just
mean,
so
that's why
much
there's the
out there.
1%.
There's just so much interesting stuff out there, and we're
Yeah.
made to not absorb it. Like just random. I'm reading a book right now on electricity and how like our bodies are electric before they're chemical. And over the last several hundred years, we've literally powered the entire world with electricity. What kind of impact is that having on our biology? I would
Mm.
rather go find the answer to that question. And the answer is like it's like a fish trying to figure out what water is at this point because we're
Yeah.
literally surrounded by all of it. But I would rather spend time trying to figure out that answer and, will that knowledge make me better rather than staring at the blue screen and, you know, hoping my quarterback throws a touchdown.
Yeah. That's amazing. So it sounds like you're also just naturally curious too. I mean, I think most of us are, but some
No, I
people,
think
like you
most of us
said,
are. Yeah, we just
yeah.
get beat. Like I look, because I look around, I observe it, and I think people just get beat into these routines, and they're just fed enough information where, if you just watch the news all day, and that's just what you do, you're very like within the lines. Where the reality is like all of this is so much different, and we can create
Mhm.
it. That's the cool part. We can create it if we know why we're here in this way. Like, why does media even exist? Then we can potentially reach in and just dent it a little bit and influence it just a little bit.
Wow. That's so powerful. So, what would you recommend to somebody that's struggling right now? And like they're just, they're even if they're building a business right now, maybe they're in their routine and they're just struggling mentally. What would you say to them?
It depends where they're at because if it's just like the average person struggling, just nuke all fucking social media.
Mm,
Just nuke all. I don't think they're gonna even find a good idea there. I just don't. I think you nuke all social media and you start asking yourself like, how can I make money and how can I make enough money so that I can take control of my time? Because once you can take control of your time, you can start to do all the other stuff. But you can't do all the other stuff until you have control of your time. Um, so I really am big on that nuking social media shit. Don't listen to people like me. Don't listen to people like you. Don't listen to Luke Belmar.
right.
Like no one cares what Luke Belmar's theory of money is if they can't fucking have control of their day to begin with.
Right.
Like it's just a different type of mental porn until then. Um, so I guess that'd be
Nuke
my
social media. That's a good one. You know why? Also because I really do notice that like the average screen time is like 4 hours or more for some people. Some people even like 8 hours of just literally mindless scrolling. Like that's crazy. That's a
consumption,
full time job.
consumption, and yeah,
And like you said, I think some people think it's work that's being done, but actually a lot of it is just harming your own mental models, like your own mind in general. It's probably better to just cut that shit out and just Focus on how you can make money right now. That's wise. So next, I wanna. So we're wrapping this up soon, but I know you're probably busy, but I want to ask you what does your routine look like now versus what it looked like when you started Genius, for example.
That's a good question. This has changed a lot over the years. Like when I'm in Puerto Rico, and it becomes kind of, I guess, more location dependent. I try to like develop like a routine that works for that area and that time, because I think most progress is made from kind of consistent routines in a good way. But like Puerto Rico, I wake up with the sun. I Right now I'm doing this like beef tallow methyl blue like solution. Kind of
Mm,
helps absorb sunlight and shit like that. And I'll go walk on the beach first thing in the morning, come back, pour into a little work, maybe make some coffee, some more work. I train. Most of my day is around. Most of my routines get planned around training now at this point, whether that be MMA or weights or whatever. But here in Puerto Rico, my MMA coach comes over around 11. We work on whatever we're working for. I'll eat. I'll chill for a little bit. I'll get back to work. And then I'll leave the afternoons just open. Like I don't do a lot of calls. I don't put a lot of stuff on the calendar. I need room for creativity. Like, Wednesdays I'm often shooting content.
mm,
And that's what I try to do. I try to have like my baseline pillars, and then I try to give myself a lot of space.
mm. And was it the same when you began Genius?
No, it was really there. I mean, there was one point where I tried to like hyper optimize every bit of my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's varied a ton. But I, I think I had a good routine of Genius at one point where I would dedicate like an hour in the morning to reading. I, I guess I've just found that the more space I give myself and the less I try to hyper optimize, the more productive I end up being, the more I accomplish, and then not like killing myself if I don't get shit done that day. Like
Right.
sometimes it just is what it is, right? I mean, if you have stuff you have to do it, but don't feel like you have to be working for the sake of working. I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into. You'd be better off just throwing the Kindle Audible, like the audio book on and going for a walk, because most of our good ideas do come from boredom.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of like boredom is a function of biology, and we don't give ourselves space to be bored anymore. That's like a scientific fact. We're plagued with cheap dopamine, and so with that, our creativity gets ruined. So I guess that's been one of my other big adjustments recently, has just been giving myself the space to let some of those ideas process. We download all this information, we need to synthesize it, and then we need to see what comes out, of our heads from it. So but I couldn't tell you in the early days of Genius like exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I was so young. Like I kept trying to develop routines, and some would work, some wouldn't. I remember being over optimized though, and I didn't like that.
Yeah. That's really great advice. I agree because I noticed once I learned about like this 20 80 20 concept, it really changed a lot for me and I started to notice kind of the same thing like a lot of I should give myself more time and not just always try to fill every gap with like work or something because it actually stumps my creativity a lot. And creativity is actually a big lever. If you can be creative, I mean,
Creativity
bro,
is what like no, I mean that's the maximum multiplier. Like it takes
right,
one idea to make yours 100 million. Period. So why
right,
aren't we giving ourselves more room for that, right? Like this Genius,
facts.
I remember thinking I have to be productive every minute of every day. And I guess that can work to some extent, but I can't imagine how much I left on the table too, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, obviously, it worked very, very well. I think, like you said, you never have to work a day in your life. I think that's probably some of the most freedom as a person you can get, and most people will never ever get to experience that. What would you say um, has what was okay? So, for example, with Amazon, right? Like you exited, but I'm just curious, how did you facilitate? How did that deal even come about, or were you looking for that, or did somebody like come to
No,
you?
no, I really wasn't at the time. It's funny. Like if I would have had mentors, I would have held the business for another year, and like I probably left like at least 20-30 million dollars on the table. Like no joke. So great outcome, but still, like you're always learning, and there's always levels, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Amazon acquisition space was just starting to heat up at the time. So I had a friend get acquired the year before for like $10 million. So everyone was aware that exits were possible. I knew like eventually once I saw his exit, I was like, okay, this is something I probably want to do. But basically, I got an unsolicited offer. Somebody came in, they bought my contract manufacturer, the people that actually make the product, and then they approached me like a week later with an offer, and it was a good offer, what I thought was a really good offer. And so I just basically ran with it. But a lot of different ways to sell a business. You know, you can sign with a banker if you're, big enough. You can, I mean, even social media nowadays, right? Like deals are getting done through there. So
True.
in my case, it was unsolicited, but a lot of different ways to do it.
When it comes to so they bought your manufacturer. That's crazy. So how did you build that manufacturer relationship in the first place? Did you just reach out on Google and just literally talk, or what?
Those guys in particular, so that was like my second main manufacturer. I met him at a trade show, and we just were very aligned on like, product quality values. Like they had left another manufacturing situation just because they didn't trust the quality. And like
Mm-hmm.
I was starting this brand because I cared about quality. And
Mm-hmm.
so we met at a trade show and just kind of hit it off. That's really the story there.
Oh, so a trade show. That's definitely something to note. Now, when it comes to manufacturing a product like that at the beginning, is it, do you have to have a lot of money aside basically to get started, or are there better ways now?
No, I mean, honestly, I started Genius with like $5,000. I gave them a deposit and we did two products that like total it would have cost me 20 grand, but they floated the back half of it with my deposit.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to be scrappy. There's more and more manufacturers in different industries that are now catering themselves towards, e-commerce types that want to test an idea before scaling.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, I think that's everywhere. I don't know every industry in and out like that, but like food, that was not the case. Food, you had to order, you know, 10,000 bags of cookies and a little
Damn.
more costly. But yeah,
But yeah, I agree. I've been seeing that a lot. It's just more business types. So I just went to the Alibaba event, and for example, there, Alibaba manufacturers were also kind of starting to allow people to test some of their products with like a low minimum order quantity because they are kind of getting into that business of just like the average ecom person not willing to risk like 50K into starting a business. You can risk five or even less to get it going.
no,
That's
exactly.
powerful.
Exactly. It's like never been more conducive to fucking attempt to start something.
Right. That's really exciting though. I think it's like I agree. I think it's like the best time. I'm just excited every day, man. I get up every day excited just to build and work with people like you, work with just people in general that are crushing it. It just feels so powerful, to be honest. It feels so great. So I hope more people get to experience that. Do you have any last words that you want to give people? Any last pieces of advice that you want to give?
Not really. I feel like I poured it all out there for you, Ari. I left it all out there.
That was so good.
It just hit us both up on all the social media channels, keep
Hell yeah.
engaged, and seriously, I do think more people should like I think your content's fucking awesome. I think more people that's the last thing I'll leave people with. There's practitioners and there's content creators, and most of YouTube creators that aren't practicing. And so they're
Mhm.
really good at making content that sounds fucking attractive. The 9 side hustles to make you $500 a day. That is optimized content from someone who's good at making content. Follow more practitioners like my man here. I try to put out as much as I
Thank
can,
you,
but
bro.
you want people in the field. So just ask them what business are they doing? Who are they working with? And if people can't answer those questions, then don't take them that seriously.
Facts. I love
Thank you for coming
that.
to my TED.
Yeah, that was a great TikTok. Thank you, bro. I'll put all your information in the description. Everybody, make sure you check them out, of course. And yeah, man, appreciate your time.
Likewise, brother. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
Let's do it. Peace.